Nick.
John.
I want to talk about the heartbeat bill.
That's dangerous territory.
It's dangerous territory and it's important territory because right now, as you look, it looks a little hopeless. The government's saying that women don't matter. Mm-hmm. And it's...
every day a new state's popping up saying we don't care about women.
Right. I when I was making the graphics and collecting data for this, by the time I had everything all set up, there were more states that were already added to it.
Yeah.
So Alaska as well. You could add that in there. But the heartbeat bill is trying to ban abortion and overturn slowly Roe v. Wade. So what it does is it bans abortion as early as 6 weeks, which is much shorter than it used to be. Abortion is a constitutional right, so this is unconstitutional. But we're going to talk about a little bit how we got this far and the figurehead behind this movement.
Yeah, and we're not going to sugarcoat anything. We don't give a fuck about this lady. There's this one lady, what's her name? Janet Porter. Janet Porter is, like you said, the figurehead behind all of this legislation. So if you're wondering why, like John said, a new state's popping up every day, it's because she drafted this legislation. She went to the politicians and said, hey, just take this to your courts. You could basically copy and paste it, and eventually we'll get it up to the Supreme Court, and they'll try to overturn Roe v. Wade.
Yep, and they have a newfound confidence because now they've got Justice Kavanaugh on the Supreme Court.
It says it on her website.
Right, they have that listed. Her organization is called Faith to Action, and they're trying to merge church and state.
It's like Web 1.0. It's really good coding.
Beautiful. Oh yeah, those JPEGs, that graininess.
I'm surprised she doesn't have like spinning GIFs of like a baby dancing or something.
she probably should.
Yeah.
But yeah, so she drafted the model of the bill that you could check out on her site, which is garbage.
Let's just demonstrate what kind of idiot she is. Like I said, we're not sugarcoating stuff. This doesn't have anything to do with abortion, but it does prove how stupid she is.
Yeah.
What's at stake? I believe the criminalization of Christianity is what happens if we lose the battle on marriage. Well, let me just say, we've all seen the headlines of Jason Collins. He's the NBA basketball player who was, I guess, really not such a great player, according to my husband. He's sort of washed up. But he came out. But Jason Collins makes our case. Do you know that he is an identical twin? He was basically what you have to remember that identical twins have identical genes. Jason Collins' brother is a heterosexual. So it's clearly not genetic. Basically, we're saying we've got a gun to your head. Either you approve homosexuality or else. Written in the official Department of Justice management tips of what you need to do as a manager. You need to verbally approve what the Bible says is an abomination. This is where it's come to. And if we don't stand up, we're going to wish we had.
Like, she doesn't understand how genetics works. She doesn't understand how science works. And you can see, clearly, all of her views come from the Bible.
Well, Nick.
Yes.
I don't know if science is at the forefront of any Republican politician.
That's true.
Right now.
To their credit, they have admitted in the past they are not scientists.
I'm not a scientist.
I'm not a scientist.
I'm not a scientist.
I don't know the science.
I'm not a scientist. I'm not a scientist.
I'm not a scientist.
Luckily, we are. At least we do research from scientists.
We're trying our damn best over
But before we get, I don't want to jump ahead because, as we said, she's very focused on her faith. She cares a lot about the Bible.
All faith
Bible
based, God first.
Yep. And as everyone knows, abortion is a sin. But you know what else is a sin, John?
Although that's also up to speculation too, because there does say something of bitter water to make a woman miscarry in the Bible too. But
yes,
we're gonna get into some of the other things that she may not be up to par on.
I was looking at pictures of her, and that's weird. I just happen to have a Holy Bible in my hand.
Wow. Do you want me to add a graphic to make that appear?
Yeah, and also leave in the part where you explain the graphic. So I was kind of curious because the Bible says there's a lot of sins out there. Specifically, if you go to Leviticus chapter 19, verse 19, it does say that you shall not put on a garment made of two different materials. You can't wear cotton blends.
Right.
You can't wear polyester. You can't wear leggings, like spandex, rayon, and cotton blends. That is a sin.
Right.
It's a sin, Janet. Also, in the same book, Leviticus, same chapter 19, but if you hop on down to verse 27, it does say that you shall not round off the hair on your temples.
Right. And we do have science here. We do have some graphics that we put into this, and that is a round head if I've ever seen
That is one super round head. But it's not done there, because if you go to the New Testament, 1 Timothy chapter 2, verse 9, it does say that women should dress themselves modestly and decently in suitable clothing, not wear their hair braided or with gold, pearls, or expensive clothes.
Right.
What the hell is she wearing here, John?
Yeah, it looks
Explain
like
this.
Looks like a necklace to me, Nicholas. It looks like a sin necklace made of sins.
Janet, you're a sinner.
It's not us saying it. It's your book.
You know, okay, I wasn't going to bring this up, but I did get into an argument with a fundamentalist evangelical. I don't know what their denomination is, but I brought this up to them, and they said, well, I'm not perfect. I don't want to fucking hear that. You know why? Because every sin weighs the same. It doesn't matter if you're eating shellfish, or if you're wearing polyester, or you abort a baby. You're going to hell either way.
Yeah.
So that's where all of these religious figureheads then say, well, it's not just a sin, you're also murdering a human life.
Right. A human life with a heartbeat, Nick.
Oh, did she say that? Did she say that they have a heartbeat at 6 weeks?
I'm pretty sure she said that,
Did she
Nicholas.
say that? Well, I think if we go to the tapes, we might have some evidence against her.
You're surrounded by balloons. Mr. Producer, let's have a wide shot here. You're surrounded by people send you roses and balloons to congratulate you on this great victory, but you don't want any of that. You gave all praise and glory to Jesus Christ as soon as that bill was signed into law, 10 years of your life, and you don't want the credit?
Well, I'll tell you that, well, I'm just giving credit where credit's due, but I will tell you, to see the balloons with it's a boy, it's a girl, it's a girl, it's a boy, it does really bring to the heart of what this is all about. It's about saving babies with real beating hearts, real babies with real beating hearts.
John.
Yes, sir.
Babies at 6 weeks have a heartbeat, right? According to Janet, whatever her face is.
They do not, Nicholas. They don't have a heartbeat. In fact, you couldn't even ask a baby that because a baby doesn't have a brain at 6 weeks, Nicholas.
You are surely joking me.
It's not a baby, Nicholas. It's an embryo. In fact, I found an article I'm just going to read straight off right now.
It's from Pop Science.
Yep. When does the fetus heart start beating? Many in the 6-week abortion bans referred to the heartbeat pills with the logic that the fetal heartbeats can be detected as early as 6 weeks. But the rhythm a doctor can pick up on an ultrasound at the time isn't a heartbeat because the embryo has no heart. The embryo is just 3 or 4 millimeters long with no developed organs. About the size of a grain of rice.
Yeah.
Cells are just starting to group together in ways that might eventually grow into hearts and brains. But thanks to modern-day sensitivity of ultrasound technology, doctors can catch the electrical activity, a rhythmic pulsing, of these cells. But there is no beating heart or even a guarantee that one will develop.
Wow, so what you're saying is, at 6 weeks, they don't have a heartbeat. They don't even have a brain.
Right.
It almost sounds like they're not human beings.
Almost like they're more of a potential, maybe a couple of group of cells.
Interesting. So what you're trying to tell me is that we're not murdering a human life. It's more akin to like using antibacterial soap to kill the bacteria on your hands.
Right.
Huh, interesting. I never thought of it that way, John.
Well, that's why we're here, Nick.
So let's imagine.
Because we're mad.
So let's imagine then that they don't care if it's a sin. They're like, yeah, whatever. You're still murdering a baby. You disproved that. And they still don't care. They still believe that life begins at conception because science is fake.
Right.
There is one thing that I think Republicans care a lot about.
Is it money, Nick?
I think it's their bank accounts.
I think it's money.
I think it's their thick wallets.
And I think those wallets are going to get a lot less thick if these babies are not wanted and are put up for adoption.
Yeah.
And the taxpayers are going to have to pay for their medical bills, food stamps, anything that taxpayer dollars would go into.
Any amount of welfare that all of the Republicans fight so hard to get rid of or reduce, Medicare, food stamps, any of those programs, you're paying for with your taxes. And you can say that you want to reduce those, but on the same token, you can't say, forcefully bring these children into the world, but once they're out of the womb, we're not going to care about them.
Right. Okay, so let's say that they don't care about the babies once they're babies, but they do care about the embryos when they're embryos. Now, do you think they care about Those frozen embryos, Nicholas.
Oh, you mean, for instance, if someone goes to get IVF because they're having trouble having a child, what they do is they create many different embryos that they hope to implant into the mother's uterus to create a fruitful child, right?
Right, yeah.
Usually when they do that, they only use one of those embryos out of however many they create.
And the others are discarded.
Right, they just throw those away. I'm sure that all of these Republicans are super pissed about those ending up in the garbage bin.
Right, but they're not, Nick.
What?
They're not.
It's almost as if it's not about the embryo.
It's about
controlling women. Huh. I just want to reiterate how important it is that it is the family's decision whether or not to have this child, because it's not a human being. So, and if you remove it from the mother at 6 weeks, it's not going to be a viable life form.
Right.
So why wouldn't it be up to the mother whether or not to keep it?
There's no reason.
Huh, that's weird.
Yeah.
So we talked about adoption. We talked about welfare programs and how taxpayer money goes towards this stuff. And one of the other arguments that comes up a lot is, well, I don't want my taxpayer money to pay for these abortions through Planned Parenthood or some other pregnancy service.
There's something like Title 19, which is funding some of Planned Parenthood's activities. But what's the one thing that's not funding, Nicholas?
Abortions.
Right.
Yeah. Back in Nixon's days, he put into effect Title 19, which said that every family has a right to family planning services, which either means financial services to help these parents survive or birth control. But it does not pay for abortions. Neither does Medicare.
Not a penny.
None of that goes toward that. So that argument is stupid. It's intentional, either intentionally or ignorantly misinformation to make these people think, to fear-monger them into saying, oh, no, I'm not paying for the murder of an embryo that's not even a human being. I'm not paying for that. Well, you're not. Good news.
Yeah. You don't have the option to if you wanted to.
Yeah.
They're not going to stop doing stuff like this because this is the beginning of a larger goal to completely overturn Roe v. Wade, right? And now that they've got more conservative judges on the Supreme Court, it's becoming easier for them to fight against things like this and to make moves.
Yeah.
So that's why it's important for us to make sure that we're fighting back too. So I'm going to put some links under here of a bunch of really helpful groups that you can actually support, throw money to, and make sure that we're fighting back against this because they're thinking the same thing.
Yeah. So one thing that I want to steal from my wife, because she's a very smart woman, she said, banning abortions does not stop abortions. It stops safe abortions. People will still find ways to get rid of their unwanted children, and it will cause a lot of harm to these women. It could irreparably damage their uterus. It could do a lot of damage to their nervous system if they're ingesting dangerous chemicals to get rid of these children. If you don't care about these women, why do you care about this embryo?
It kind of reminds me of the same thing. It's another right-wing thing to ban contraceptives.
Yeah, and
the
sex
more you
education.
Do that, and the more you do that, the more pregnancies going up. It's the same deal. And people are not going to stop having abortions. You cannot outlaw. You can outlaw it all you want, but if you're putting someone that's already in a desperate situation into a more desperate situation, they're going to take desperate action.
It's the same thing with abstinence-only sex education. That creates a lot of teen pregnancies because people don't understand that people are still going to have sex, but if you teach them only to stay abstinent and not how to have safe sex, they're going to get pregnant because they don't know that there's another option. It's the same thing. Sex is still going to happen. It's just going to be not safe.
Yeah.
One last thing I think I want to bring up is that a lot of people are bringing up these graphs of the 27 men or whatever it is. I think 27 versus 25. Everyone's pointing out that it's a bunch of white dudes that passed this legislation. But what's horrifying is that it's this nasty Janet
Porter.
What's her Porter? I don't want to ever meet this woman, but it's a woman putting this into effect, and she's been working on this for 10 years to overthrow Roe v. Wade, which has been in effect for 50 years.
Right. If you look this up, there's times that she's tried to pass the same heartbeat bill. I'm pretty sure it had the same name in like 2010.
Yeah, there's a whole article on Wikipedia that says what state it was put into effect, when it was put into effect, and then when it failed. And there's just list after list of it getting stopped, which is good. And now that they're forcing this through, they wanted to get to the Supreme Court. And that's why you see televangelists say, oh man, this heartbeat bill was a step too far.
I think Alabama has gone too far. There's no exception for rape or incest. It's an extreme law, and they want to challenge Roe versus Wade. But my humble view is that this is not the case we want to bring to the Supreme Court, because I think this one will lose.
It's not because they disagree with it. It's because they think it's too aggressive and it's not going to pass the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
So they want to take it down one tiny notch so that Brett Kavanaugh and all of his cronies will pass it through the Supreme Court.
Right.
But the most important thing here is just respect anyone with a uterus.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't make any sense. It's not your uterus.
Yeah.
And just because they have a uterus doesn't make them any less than you in any shape.
I think Arnold Schwarzenegger said it best.
What did he say?
My body, my choice.
So we've been facetious, but in all seriousness, this is incredibly important. We're fucking pissed.
Yeah. So we felt it was important to study the science of this, to get that out, to go in there and to be obligated to get this out. And if we don't stand up for ourselves...
Hang on. Let's just let Janet use her words.
This is where it's come to. And if we don't stand up, we're going to wish we had.